Hello and welcome to ACS Golf and this week's review. I'm looking at this, the ST200 TS fairway wood. Now, if you're not new to my channel, you would have probably seen a few videos last year of what's in my bag and you'll know that I played with this over the summer. However, I did take it out of the bag over winter and it will most likely go back in again during the summer, and I'll explain why at the end of this video. But now let's get on to why I've picked it up to review for you guys and why I'm doing a review now if I have had this club for, well, nearly a year. First off, ST200 TS. I picked this up personally myself last year because I'm a massive fan of Mizuno. I think they've done some really good woods over the years and they just keep on improving. And when I saw this TS, I didn't actually know anything about this. So I knew about the ST200, I knew about the ST200X, you know, both non-adjustable. The X is that draw bias one for the player who's looking to solve a slice and, you know, have maximum forgiveness. But I didn't know much about the TS, well, I'd never heard of it. And I'm assuming a lot of you guys watching this now would be the same. And it turns out Mizuno has released over the years tall spec model fairway woods which sort of go under the radar but have performed really well. Like the reviews that I was reading and watching when I did manage to find some about this fairway wood were fantastic. 5-star Golf Monthly. They put this against a Sim Titanium, which, let's be honest, TaylorMade have always done fantastic fairway woods, and the Titanium is that sort of better player monster, and it was matching it. It was matching it. So this is an absolutely fantastic fairway. Before we even get to the ACS Golf review at the end of this video, it is fantastic. So that's why I wanted to pick it up. And the reason why I'm doing the review now is because there's a lot of hype at the end of last year about this Mizuno STG Titanium fairway wood which they released. Again, better player fairway wood, sort of more sort of tour-esque fairway wood, so a little bit smaller profile, etc. And so I was like, well, this is perfect time because, you know, you might be looking at that titanium model from Mizuno. Don't get me wrong, it looks fantastic. But, you know, the price of it, I've had a look, just around £275. You know, $400 in the US. I mean, I'm assuming if you go in the second-hand market already, they'll probably still be on there now. You can find it a little bit cheaper, but that's a hell of a lot of money to be spending on a fairway wood, like a lot of fairway woods are nowadays. So if you're looking at that, you could be looking at this. Tour spec from 2020, so now 4 years old, which performed fantastic and was one of the best fairway woods for that year. So you could save yourself, you know, £100, $150 by potentially picking this up. So that's the main reason why I'm doing a review of it now for you guys, because I think it's a prime time to let this beast out into the world for the viewers who've been watching my channel, to say, look out for this if you're looking for a player's fairway wood, because it is fantastic. So there you go, there's the reasons for picking it up. Now, as always, we're going to have a closer look at the club, then we're going to come back here for all the technology that's in here, and then we're going to get down the range, I'll throw some figures at you, and then we'll come back here for the ACS golf scale. As always, before we have a closer look at this, do remember, guys, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on weekly golf reviews, and we've got a lot of extra videos coming up as well over the next sort of couple of months as well. So do remember to hit that subscribe item and hit that bell icon. That's what I was looking for, the bell icon. And also follow me on Instagram, ACS, I believe it's acs.golf. You'll see a lot more sort of insight to things coming up, a few extra little videos, etc. goes on there, and a few more sort of, you know, these are the clubs, etc. So do give that a follow as well. Now, let's have a closer look at this club, because I'm not going to lie, it is gorgeous. Okay. So there you go, a closer look at the club, and it really is a thing of beauty. You know, I love the bird sign for Mizuno. You know, you sort of see that carbon fibre through the top there. Got a little blue there. And this is the thing as well about Mizuno. They really haven't changed the top that much. I know the silver line I don't believe is there anymore, but it's still relatively the same. So if you put this down on the top, you're not going to know this from 2020. You just won't know it. You know, the bottom's nice as well. Overall, a good looking club. Now let's get into the technology of this. And also, before I get into technology, I will just say, you can tell with the build quality of this, it just feels solid, which is really, this is obviously a very good, you know, you'd expect it from Mizuno, but I thought I'd just mention it while I was holding it in my hands here. But anyway, let's get on to the technology. So, reading the spiel online that I found, which I thought was quite good. So, introducing a new multi-thickness marrying steel face for increased initial ball speeds. The ST200 fairway woods combine the unlikely companions of low spin and massive forgiveness for minimal distance loss from off-centre strikes. Set up beautifully addressed within a modified tour-ready profile, the TS fairway wood features an adjustable hosel for micro adjustments, allowing total control over club preference. There you go, bingo. All the other ST models were not adjustable, and this was the only one that was. And this is a little spiel from the director of Mizuno R&D at the time. You know, by utilising stronger marrying steel, we have achieved our thinnest ever multi-thickness core tech face, which now approaches core values that are normally reserved for drivers. So bringing all sort of the tech from the drivers, which at the time was really starting to build up into what they are nowadays, into the fairway for the first time. So going to the features now, goes extend your long game. A new MAS 1C marrying face and multi-thickness design for greater energy transfer and faster ball speeds from across the club face. You know, we don't have to get to the ACS golf scale for me to tell you that that was achieved. Like I said, this matched the Sim Titanium pretty much for everything. So there you go. Improved stability without adding spin. So weight saved from a compacted wave sole. There's the wave sole technology. And variable thickness graphite crown has been relocated low deep. So there you go. So there it is. Tool ready. And then we got a softer leading edge and hosel transition deliver a tour accepted look within a confidence inspiring profile. And we've got wet weather score lines. So you got the little, you know, you got your white there, which I think was quite good. You know, full score lines to maintain adequate spin and ball flight in moist and wet conditions. So if you notice some fairway woods, especially when you sort of get to like 5 wood or up, they won't have the score lines. They won't have these lines across the whole face. They'll only have them sort of in the 3 woods where, you know, there's going to get more moisture in there. And so that's why they do it, which is quite good. So it helps with wet conditions. Now moving on to the adjustable hosel. So as always with this, you do have your adjustable hosel here where you can go up to, it says 13 to 17 degrees, but it's actually not quite that. It's slightly different. So you can go down to 12, so 15 degrees and go down to 12.75 degrees or up to 17.25 degrees. And then you can change the face angle by opening it by 4 degrees or closing it by 2 degrees. So there you go, great adjustability on the neck there and a lot of tech in here where they're moving that weight around to give you the forgiveness but still have that low spin that you'd want from a bomber, from that tour spec driver, because that's what the better player is looking for. Lower spin, more distance, but with an added bit of forgiveness. So at the moment, technology is on the point. Now, let's get down to range and I'm going to throw some figures at you. Now, I will say with me, especially with my fairway woods, just before we get to range, you know, I tend to struggle to hit this ball up in the air when it comes down with fairway wood. And with this model, that's one of the things they say, it is a very low trajectory fairway wood. So if you struggle to get it in the air, you could potentially struggle. So I actually set this up at 17, so the highest height that I can have at highest, you know, degrees that I can have this to really help get the ball in the air to maximise distance. Now I did also test it at 15 degrees, which I'll quickly discuss at the ACS golf scale after we get down to range, but just to be aware, at the range it is set at the highest launch angle possible. Just thought I'd let you know that, guys, which is great because you have the adjustability in this. Okay, now let's get to the range and I'll throw some figures at you and then we'll come back in here for the ACS golf scale. So here I am down the range with the club. Now, for me with the 3-wood, I'm looking for around 230 yards. So is this going to get there being lofted up? Well, let's jump straight into those figures. So on average, I was getting a carry of 208 yards. Total distance was 231 yards. So I was hitting that 3-wood sort of specification that I look for, even though this club was lofted up. Ball speed, it was 144 miles per hour, launch angle 9 degrees and height 52 feet. What I will say with this is there's even more in the tank for this club. You know, the longest on the night was 239 yards, ball speed 147 miles per hour, and I personally have hit this further on other tests in the summer when I was using it, so it is an absolute rocket ship. The feel of it's great. Forgiveness is pretty good as well. I mean, you saw in one of the last videos there where I hit the ball, I was pointing to the toe because I came off the toe and the ball flight was still really good and I was happy with it. And also with this club, it's not just, you know, the feel, the power, you know, and the forgiveness, because there's a pretty good level of forgiveness what it is, but there's a workability. And there you go, you know, wanted to put a fade on it to give it a go, straight off the bat, got the fade. So really workable, playable club. So there you go, for you some figures there and spot on. You know, I want 230 really from a fairway wood, 3-wood for me, and I was getting that. And then to get a few longest, you know, 239, so near that 240 mark, you know, ball speed, you know, 147 was the fastest, near that 150 mark. This thing is a beast, and I know I've done better than that because, like I said, I've had it in the bag during the summer, and I've definitely hit some longer than that. So it is an absolute beast. And you can still see though, you know, even with it set up to 17 degrees, as I mentioned, you know, it is difficult to get this up in the air. I'm still only getting a launch angle of 9 degrees. So do be aware of that. I will say, if you're looking at this and you do struggle to get your fairway woods up in the air, you might struggle with this a tad, but you do have the option to increase the loft to aid that, which I personally do. Just before we get into the ACS golf scale, I will say I have tested it at 15 degrees. Numbers relatively the same. Ball speed was up a little bit, of course, because it's a lower angle. We did have some more rollout because I wasn't getting the same sort of launch. We were getting a little bit more distance. So it was great, but for me, I just couldn't get up in the air. So that's why I set it at 17 to review for you guys, to give you those numbers so you can get appreciation of how good this really is. Because, you know, because if you're thinking 17 degrees, you're talking about 5-wood there, and it's getting my 3-wood numbers. Excellent. Perfect. Love it. Great. Anyway, let's get into the ACS golf scale. So if you're new to the channel, as always, we've got distance, feel, looks, price and forgiveness, 1 to 5, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst, and we do points 5 as well, just to split out some of the clubs that I review. Now going on to the first one, distance. So as I mentioned, 230, right spot on, but those ones against 239, you know, 237 we got in there as well. We were getting some great distance for it. And because of the reviews that I read, this matches the Sim Titanium, etc., which at the time was one of the longest fairway woods out there. I'm giving this 4.5 out of 5. In the right hands, if you get the adjustments right, this could potentially be one of the longest fairway woods you have tried. It is really good. It is great. I can't say enough about it. So do, if you want really distance and you're a better player, potentially this. I mean, it's just fantastic. I love it. I do love it. And every time I go to myself, well, it's not in the bag, I might get rid of it. I can't, because it takes the range, and I realise how much I love it. On to feel, 4.5 out of 5. It feels great. Mizuno have always produced, recently anyway, great feeling fairway woods, great feeling drivers, and this is no different. Feels really nice. I do know where my misses are. It's just a really nice feeling. You know, not only it doesn't feel soft, but it also feels powerful, which is fantastic, which you really, really want, which is great. So really happy with it. Feel 4.5 out of 5. We're doing great so far. we really are. On to looks now. So I've given it 4 out of 5. Now, don't get me wrong, the top looks beautiful. I love it. It's really great, but the bottom, I don't know. It hasn't aged as well as some clubs from that sort of time period. You know, it looks quite different from maybe newer ones, but it's still nice bottom. But I just, you know, it's four out of 5 for me, I think, personally. And that's just looking at it from my perspective. Some of you guys might look at this and go, hold on, you know, I love the bottom. So there you go. But yeah, 4 out of 5, still fantastic. Still think it's a great looking club. And as I said, I can't beat that on the top. It's beautiful. On to forgiveness. Now, this is the better players version. It is the tour spec, but there is still a good amount of forgiveness in this. I've personally given it a 3 out of 5. I could possibly push it up to 3.5 out of 5 because it is that tour spec, and I just want you to all be aware that the forgiveness is good for this type of club. You know, don't expect it to be like the normal one. Don't expect it to be like the ST200X, you know. It is that tour players one. It is for the better players. So for me, 3 out of 5, still very good forgiveness. You know, if you're that better player looking for a club like this, you won't be disappointed. It will definitely give you enough forgiveness that you need to really get this performing. And then we move on to price. So price is a bit of a difficult one here because I only paid £81 for this. You know, that's around $100. That's so cheap. That's so good. You know, if you pick it up for that, it's 5 out of 5 because you're not going to beat that. That's fantastic. But the person hadn't advertised it at TS, you know, I was in the right time, right place at the right time, you could say, to get it for that price. But if you're comparing it against like the Mizuno STG, like I've already said, this year's model, you know, £275, $400, then, you know, if you go into a place like Golf Bidder, which is a second-hand shop over here in the UK, you're looking around £120. £120, which is about $150. For a fairway wood this good, that's, in my eyes, that's a bargain. eBay, they tend to go for the same around price, £120, $150. You can find them a little bit cheaper, you can find them a little bit more expensive. But again, for that price, this is fantastic. Now, one issue though, is I have seen the odd one around £200. And I think that's that's around $250, and I think that's a little bit too much. In that case, if you're looking at it and you can't find one for the price around 120, then I'd be looking at the Sin Titanium as a sort of a substitute for something just as good. You know, that sort of players, or then maybe even the Titleist TS2 or Titleist TS3. I think probably Titleist TS3 would be more up this street, or even the TSI3, for example. You know, there's a lot of options under that sort of £200 bracket, which I think you can get something just as good as this, but for a little bit cheaper price. So do be aware of that. 200, I think is a little bit step too far, especially the fact you can pay an extra £75 and get a brand new one. So there you go. But if you're finding it around £120 mark, so, you know, as I mentioned, around that $150, 4 out of 5. Because it is a fantastic fairway wood. It's great. It feels fantastic. It goes far. It looks good. It's got great workability as well, which I showed, you know, right at the end of that one. I did that nice little fade with it. It's fantastic. It's such a good fairway wood. Some of the comments during the reviews I will mention is they said it was quite difficult to get off the ground, so turf interaction when it's on the fairway. Personally, I haven't found haven't found that difficult at all. I really haven't. I found my turf interaction fine. I've been able to get off the fairway, no worries. Obviously, it does come out low, but that's just what this club does. It's a, you know, better players one. It comes out low, but you know, if you're that really better player, then you can work with it to probably get it to that high launch. So do be aware of that. But again, I never found that an issue. And we said the height. So just going into the club as though, like an overview of it, fantastic, brilliant. You know, if no one's ever tried this club, or you think you're putting new fairway wood in, you are that sort of better player, or you hit your fairway woods really well and you want that sort of tour spec, a little bit smaller face, you know, fantastic distance, fantastic field, etc., etc. Do look at this because you won't be disappointed at all. It is amazing. Now, why I took it out of the bag, So let me just finish on that. So as I mentioned before, it's quite difficult to get up in the air. You know, I'm only getting carry on average of just around that 210 mark, well, below that 210. And in the winter, that means it won't go anywhere. You know, I'm not going to get that extra 20 yards rollout in the winter. So I actually took this out of the bag and I put in a TaylorMade Stealth 2 5 wood, so 18 degrees, and regular flex. I play stiff because regular flex really does help launch it in the air. Spins a little bit too much, but I get maximum carry for this type of weather. But in the summer, when it's dry, I'm going to get that rollout again. This will go back in the bag because it is that good. Unless I review something over the next couple of months that I find is better, it's going to go back in the bag because it is that good. I enjoy it so much. It's a fantastic club. So there you go. That's why it's out the bag at the moment. It's just because the carry for me isn't good enough to maximise my distance in the winter. But in the summer when it's harder, it will definitely be going back. I'm probably at that 17 degrees again as well. So there you go, guys. Probably quite a long video again for the review of this club. So the Mizuno ST200 TS. I always say if I've had a really long video, it tends to mean that I really like the club, which in this case is fact. I love it, and I'm looking forward to getting the ground getting a bit firmer over here in the UK as we sort of head into spring and getting this club back in the bag because it is a beauty. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Remember to give it a like if you did. Comment down below if you know if you play Mizuno fairway woods. You know, what do you think of them? Do you like them? Do you think they're any good? Also, remember to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so. Mean a lot. More subscribers, more videos, etc, etc, etc. Okay, guys. I'll see you next week for the next ACS golf video. Okay, see you then. Bye bye.